Hello everyone, I Komal Gangi, faculty of MBA from Tecnia Institute of Advanced Studies. In today's lecture, I'll be discussing with you the first function of management, that is planning. So before beginning up with what planning is, I'll be taking one example and discussing with you about planning. So Mr. ABC took over as an executive chief of a loss-making company. The company had almost no sale, heavy cost of production. Cost of production was equal to the competitor's product, low morale of the staff, high fixed overheads, etc. So he called a meeting of his department heads and had a brainstorming session for determining the problem and finding out a solution. Accordingly, the following plan was worked out jointly by all of them. First was they reduced the material cost by increasing the supervision. They reduced the wastage, increased the sales by being a second source of supply to major customers, improve the morale of the staff by laying out individual as well as team goals to be achieved with the overall plan, and the company started making profits and wiped out his accumulated losses in a period of 3 years. And why did this happen? It happened because it was just a matter of proper planning. Now let me begin with what the concept of planning is. To plan is to produce a schema for future course of action, to bring the specified results at a specified cost in a specified period of time. Now, according to Philip Kotler, planning means deciding in present what to do in the future. It is the process whereby the companies reconcile their resources with their objectives and opportunities. So, just to brief out the concept of planning, planning is the primary function of management. Planning is all pervasive and a fundamental function of management. It involves anticipation of future course of events and deciding the best course of action. Basically a process of thinking before doing. It is deciding on goals, formulating policies and preparing the budget. It is deciding in advance what to do, how to do, when to do, by whom it is to be done. It bridges the gap from where we are in present and where we wish to be in future. So merely ascertaining the future is not planning. It involves selecting or designing appropriate techniques and procedures that will be instrumental in arriving at these goals. Planning is a rational approach to the future. It deals with future and it involves forecasting. And one should have reflective thinking, imagination and farsightedness if one is to succeed well in performing this difficult task. So it is always said, well planned is half done. Planning substantially reduces the areas of uncertainty, confusion, chaos and crisis in organizational life by setting advanced standards and targets to guide and control enterprise activity. Now let me explain what the term planning gap means. Planning gap is the difference between where a firm is likely to be and where it will be if it does nothing. That is called your planning gap. Now let me discuss with you the nature or the features of planning. Number one, planning is goal oriented. So planning is made to achieve the desired objective of the business. The goals established should have general acceptance. Otherwise, individual efforts and energies will go misguided and misdirected. Planning identifies the action that would lead to desired goals quickly and economically. It provides a sense of direction to the various activities. Then planning is looking ahead. Now let me discuss with you about the nature of planning, or I would say the features of planning. The first feature to planning is that planning is goal oriented. It is made to achieve the desired objective of the business. The goals established should be of general acceptance, otherwise individual efforts and the energies will go misguided and misdirected. Planning identifies the action that would lead to desired goals quickly and economically. I would say it provides sense of direction to various activities. Secondly, I would say planning is looking ahead. It is done for the future. It requires peeping in future, analyzing it and predicting it. Thus, planning is based on forecasting. A plan is a synthesis of forecast. It is a mental predisposition for things to happen in future. Thirdly speaking, planning is an intellectual process. It involves choosing the proper course of action among the alternatives. It may call for decision making. Changes in environment bring risk and opportunities. It is a task of the planner to minimize risk and take advantage of the opportunities. Planning is a rational and mental exercise. It requires imagination, it requires foresightedness, it requires sound judgment. It involves thinking before doing. So I would say it is a conscious determination and projecting a course of action for the future and is based on objectives, facts and considered forecasts. Planning involves choice and decision making. Planning essentially involves choice among various alternatives. Therefore, if there is only one possible course of action, there is no need for planning because there is no choice. Thus, decision making is an integral part of planning and a manager is surrounded by a number of alternatives. So, he has to pick up the best depending upon the requirements and the resources of the enterprise. Planning is a primary function of management and here lies the primacy of planning. So, planning, I would say, it lays down the foundation for other functions of management. After planning only, we organize, staff, direct and control. It serves as a guide for organizing, staffing, directing and controlling. All the functions of management are performed within the framework of the plans being laid out. Planning, I would say, is a continuous process. It is never-ending function due to the dynamic business environment. Plans are also prepared for a specific period of time and at the end of that period, plans are subjected to revaluation and review in the light of new requirements and changing conditions. Now, planning never comes into end till the enterprise exists issues. Problems may keep cropping up and they have to be tackled by planning effectively. Planning is all pervasive. It is required at all the levels of management and in all the departments of the enterprise, be it the functioning department of, say for example, the research and development, be it the sales department, the marketing department, the finance department, everywhere planning is required. And of course, the scope of planning may differ from one level to another. The top level may be more concerned about planning the organization as a whole, whereas the middle level may be more specific in the departmental plans, and the lower level plans, implementation of the same. So, planning is designed for efficiency. It leads to the accomplishment of objectives at the minimum possible cost. After all, management is all about effective and efficient utilization of resources. So, planning keeps into account that it has to do all the possible effective utilization of the resources at hand and the minimum cost should be involved. It avoids wastage of resources and it ensures that adequate and optimum utilization of resources has been done. A plan is worthless, I would say, or useless if it does not value the cost incurred on it. Therefore, planning must lead to saving of time, saving of effort, saving of money. Now, planning leads to proper utilization of men, money, material, methods and machines, the 5 M's of management. Planning is flexible. It is done for the future. And since future is unpredictable, planning must provide enough room to cope up with the changes in the customer's demand, be it the competition, be it the government policies, etc. And under changed circumstances, the original plan of action must be revised and updated to make it more practical. Now, we'll be discussing about how the process of planning moves. Planning process, the first will begin with establishing of objectives. Then we'll be deciding on how we are framing the planning premises. Then how we'll be determining the alternative courses of action, evaluation of the alternatives, then selecting a course of action and formulating derivative plans. So one by one I'll be discussing each of the 6 steps in detail, starting up with the first one, that is with establishing objectives. Now, setting objectives is the most crucial part of planning. They should be verifiable, that is, they should be as far as possible be specified in clear and measurable terms, because if the objectives are not measurable, we will not be able to match up with the performance being done in future. So, corrective action taking would become a difficult task. Objectives provide the guidelines what to do for the preparation of strategic and procedural plans. One cannot make plans unless one knows what is to be accomplished. These plans, or I would say the objectives, must be clear, must be specific and informative. Major objectives should be broken down into departmental, sectional and individual objectives. And in order to set realistic objectives, planners must be fully aware of the opportunities and the problems that the enterprise is likely to face. Now, when the objectives have been established, we will move on to the next step, that is setting up the planning premises. Premises signify planning assumptions or future setting within which planning will take place. Planning requires that some assumptions to be made regarding future happenings. For example, assumptions pertaining to future business condition, sales volume, change of government, industrial policy change should be considered as premises on which to develop plans. Premises which may be of strategic significance to one industry may not be of equal significance to the others due to the size of the industry, nature of business and other relevant factors. It is a prerequisite to determine future settings such as the markets, prices, tax structure, government policy, business cycles, etc. before framing up the master plan. Premises as such may be viewed as an environment of plans in operation. Now we can categorize the types of premises also. These could be external or internal. These could be controllable or semi-controllable. So moving on to what internal or external premises is. Internal comprises of sales forecast, capital investment in plans, equivalent measure programs already laid down and many other factors that shape the nature of planning. External premises could be the general business environment. It comprises of social, economic and politico-technological conditions, the product market and the factor market. These could be tangible and intangible. Tangible when it is possible to quantify in those premises in terms of rupees, in terms of working hours or man days or units of production, etc. Intangible premises cannot be quantified in numerical terms. For example, you cannot quantify the goodwill of a company. Premises can be controllable, semi-controllable and non-controllable. Now, controllable premises could be that are largely decided by the company management, which involves policies and programs which could be controlled by the management. Semi-controllable premises, which to a considerable extent may be modulated and controlled by the business enterprises. And non-controllable premises that which are absolutely beyond the clutch of the business enterprise. The third step here is determining the alternate courses. There can be hardly any occasion when there are no alternatives, and it is most likely that the alternatives are properly assessed, which may prove worthy and meaningful. As a matter of fact, it is imperative that alternative courses of action must be developed before deciding upon the exact plan. So now, after deciding on the alternatives, we evaluate these alternatives on various parameters. So the fourth step would be evaluation of alternatives. We evaluate the alternatives giving due weightage to various factors involved. For one alternative may appear to be most profitable, involving heavy cash outlay, whereas the other may appear to be less profitable but involve less risk. Likewise, another course of action may be to be contributing significantly to the company's long-range objectives, although immediate expectations are likely to go unfulfilled. Now, after evaluating the various courses, we move with selecting one course of action. That would be our fifth step to it. Out of the various alternative courses, evaluating of the courses of action or alternatives, what we'll do will be picking out one of the best course of action, which would be our plan. So, in the next step, which would be our sixth step, or I would say the final step to it, we'll be formulating derivative plans after selecting one course of action. Derivative plans are the plans which are derived from the course of alternative which we have already selected. Say for example, if Indian Airline decides to run jumbo jets between Delhi and Patna, obviously a number of derivative plans have to be framed to support the decision. Example, there would be a staffing plan, maybe operating plans for fueling, maintenance, store purchases, and there could be various other possible derivative plans to it, which would be taken care by various other departments and Indian airlines only. So this was all about the planning concept, the nature of planning, or I would say the features of planning, and we have explained here the entire process of planning.